I started my career at MTV as an intern in London. And so I was started at MTV Europe when we were launching MTV Europe in '92 in London. And one of the projects I worked on was MTV Radio and really syndicating MTV Radio throughout Europe. And then I transitioned over to Miami to launch MTV Latin America, where I was their director of marketing and business development, and also did MTV Radio and did the Unplugged records and all those things throughout Latin America. And I always loved radio. I always thought it was a great medium to target the masses, to target a specific demo. And after MTV, I ended up moving into the label arena, where I worked with the Beastie Boys and was the GM of a company called Grand Royal Records, which you may know. And so I got to work with a lot of artists working with radio, and so bands like At the Drive-In and Brand Van 3000 and a lot of other bands, we worked with, and clearly we work with radio, and radio is really a focus for ours in order to support getting the music heard and also selling records. And so from there, I always wanted to get into the business, and so I started Mapleton Communications in 2001. How did we begin and enter the business? We started in Medford, Oregon. We bought a cluster of stations. We probably paid a little bit more than we should have at the time, but we nonetheless entered the market and have since done very well in that market with a group of 4 FMs and 2 AMs. One of the things I would say is that you really, our strategy is we operated a lot of local businesses prior in the cable business, so we were familiar with the communities that we entered in. So what most people don't know about Mapleton Communications is that most of the markets where we broadcast radio stations, we used to own the cable in those markets. So we're familiar. We kind of handpicked the markets, they're growth markets. And I would highly recommend that if you are getting involved in the radio business, that you do speak to other people in the radio business and get someone who's familiar with operations, because I think that there's a lot of tricks to the trade with radio, and there's a lot of things like I mentioned with the FCC that one is responsible for. And so we clearly hired an operations guy. That was the first thing we did in forming the company, was hiring a radio operations guy, someone who's been in the business for 20 years.